the invoice being different than the application, this is the actual request for reimbursement for those applications. This also would include if you self-fund, you do also have to invoice something that is self-funded in the system to get it to process. This is a separate step, and we're going to show this in a couple of our follow-on slides of how invoicing is different than kind of the initial reporting of a measure or project to Bonneville for us to review. And then those programs that I refer to, that is it's a type of reported measure project that have similar reporting requirements. It's very similar to our current, or well, our now legacy system in IS2O, which is you picked up a particular Excel calculator or tool and reported different measures and projects depending on what you were doing. So you went to the UES upload template if you had a UES measure. If you had a custom project, you went to the custom project option 1 Excel file. In BEETS, each one of those is now called a program. The next term here, the widget, we're going to show you more of the dashboard today. And so the widget is kind of referring to an individual component on that dashboard. So just think of it as it's a piece of the dashboard that we refer to. This widget shows you this, and this widget shows you that. And they'll, I think that'll become readily apparent as you look at the dashboard. And then lastly, we talked in Module 1 a lot about workflows and Work Center. The workflow is the essentially a sequence of tasks that are in the process of working on applications that you will follow and basically give you instructions through the workflow on what you need to do in an application to move that application between the different users who may need to review the application, and then ultimately that workflow passes that application into a kind of a ready to invoice status, which then allows you to request a payment for it. Okay. So so we've got these charts that we're using to kind of bring us back home. So in Module 1, we talked about what's in the yellow box here. This is the application processing. So this is reporting a project or measure to Bonneville via an application. So that's something the utility does, or maybe if it's a certain, like a custom project, maybe a customer service engineers entered that application on your behalf and passed it to you to review. That all occurs in the system. The system is built with certain checks, business rules that come out of our IM to look for certain things. So if in the IM it says you must report this type of information, we've been able to program the system to look for that and make sure it's there before that application is passed on to our team. So it will help you successfully complete all the requirements for the reporting process before it's handed to us. So when we review it, all the fields are there, all the data is in the right format, and then our COTRs and other quality control specialists review your projects, and essentially if everything meets our compliance standards in the implementation manual, that application is approved by Bonneville. So that's what we reviewed in Module 1. So then that application is then passed on to here where we are talking about today is Module 2. Now that you've gotten approval from Bonneville on your projects and applications, you can go in and say, now I'm ready to actually request a payment from Bonneville. And that is the invoice process. You'll see today it's very streamlined. It's a very quick process, but it is a deviation, and Melissa will talk a little bit about that from our current process. But once you submit that invoice, it goes out, it connects with our Bonneville's financial systems, and the financial system says, Department of Treasury, please go pay this customer the same way it does today. And most will talk about how it may actually occur a bit faster. And then at the bottom of this chart, you see we've got the BEETS dashboard updates and the user run reports. So as you're going through the flow across the top of the chart, the dashboard's going to get updates from the system. It's going to provide you some status of your applications. And then in a nightly process, all the data, not all of it, most of the data that from BEETS gets replicated into a reporting environment that we call the reports portal. Essentially, this is where we're going to show you how you can go run a report and get a lot of information about your projects and measures, so that you can extract it from the system. And if you want to do it for reconciliation or do some data mining or analysis of your reported projects and measures, you'll be able to get that data through the reports portal.
Okay. All right, Melissa, Right.
Take it away?
Yep. So we have talked about some of these things. This may be repeat, but it's important to repeat, partly because it's a bit of a shift, and also because it's related to what we're talking about today. So in IS2 previously, you would submit an invoice package, compile and submit it, and that would start a 30-day clock. VPA would complete their compliance review, possibly oversight, but generally that would be done and the payment would be issued 30 days from the date that you initially submitted it. In BEETS and going forward, you'll be submitting through a two-step process, as Adam described. You're going to, for example, upload a UES measure template or a non-residential lighting calculator or 2 or 5, and those will go through the compliance review process, and those will be called applications as they come into the system. And that review should happen approximately 7 to 10 business days for the COTR to do their compliance review. Sometimes there's a tech review for some measures in there. And then once that step has been completed and those applications are in what's called ready to invoice status, you as a utility would return into the system and collect up pretty much all the things that are in that state and submit them on an invoice. And that would start a net 10 payment clock in which you would be paid in 10 calendar days. So it is a two-step process, but the second step is pretty darn quick. So that's important to note. It could mean that you get paid in less than 30 days. You know, if you just had submitted a 25 line item UES template, those 25 applications go through smoothly and the COTR approves, and you say, hey, all those are all ready, I'm going to invoice for them, Bonneville. You would get paid 10 days from when you invoiced for them. Next slide. Now, in the case of performance payments, we also have a shift that's more flexible, but is a little bit different. Currently, I can't get over currently, IS2 is no longer, but in the past, it was an automatic addition to your invoice unless you were opted out and you submitted a performance payment form that said you did not want it or you wanted a lesser amount. Also, it's all one bucket of funding. EEI, you submit it, you don't have to break it into multiple buckets. And again, this all happened on one invoice for EEI and performance payment. Now in BEETS, it takes a couple more steps, but it's also more flexible. So you decide when you want to claim that performance payment after you've invoiced for the EEI activity. So basically, as you submit things in, you're earning performance payment, and then you can decide right after you invoice for your measures that the next day you could come in and do what's called a performance payment invoice, or you could wait and decide you want to kind of build up your performance payment completions, and you know, every quarter you want to ask Bonneville for your performance payment. And you can also decide how much you request at a time. Also, that does mean, and you should have possibly received an email from your ear, or you will this week, requesting a review of what came out of IS2 budget-wise, where you sit currently with your budget. And that confirmation is important because we need to put EEI in one bucket and performance payment in another bucket. And we're going to base it initially on your available two-year cap, but that email will request for you to take a look at that. So those are two separate budgets. And then, as we'll talk about a little bit later, the actual step of invoicing happens separately. So you do your EEI invoice, and then that process is overnight. And then if you wanted to, the next day you could do the performance payment invoice.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to get into the key dashboards for invoicing. Just want to reset a little bit where we focused last time in BEETS. So this is what the BEETS login page looks like. We focused in the application processing tab. So this is where we do the work of viewing and processing applications, fixing any errors, viewing application data. We also looked at the global navigation search, so how you actually access applications using the unique application number, searching across the whole system. And then we looked at sort of customizing our dashboards and how we add or remove dashboard widgets. And this led us into starting to look at the different key dashboards that we use in BEETS. And last time we looked at the bulk uploader tool. So this was how we got the UAS and non-residential lighting calculators into the BEETS system. Today, we are going to go back to the dashboard section, but focus on the other two key dashboard widgets that are used solely in the invoicing process, the budget and savings dashboard and the invoice dashboard. And then we will also look at the utility and program management tab, which sort of has two purposes. You can search for applications by utility and program, but for today's purpose, this is where you will be performing payment approvals, which is sort of that last step that Melissa was talking about in what's changing, where you actually request payment. So digging in a little deeper into the two key dashboard widgets that are used in the invoicing process, and we'll get in there in a second. The budget and savings dashboard, which in the system is referred to as the Power BI report. This is going to show you all of your budgets, and as we'll see in a second, your budget's split out by EEI and performance payment and the funds you have in each. The invoice dashboard, which is also called paginated report in the system, this is where you get the specific line item detail for the invoices that are created and for the payment that is sent to you after complete. So it will have all of like the invoice numbers, but also the specific applications and measures that are associated with them. So the key point to note here, these dashboards don't update in real time. There's a refresh every 2 to 3 hours. However, anything that has a dependency on invoicing, which is quite a bit in the system and on the dashboard, these will not be updated until nightly. So it runs against, BPA's financial systems and feeds back on a nightly cadence. So it's safe to assume that anything you put in to BEETS during the day, if you check back the next day, your dashboards will be updated. Are there any questions about the timing of the dashboards? We'll sort of reiterate it a few times during the session today. Okay. All right, so now we're going to log into the system, and I'll try to do a quick refresh for you, DJ. I know this is going to be all new to you. This is what the BEETS login page looks like. And hopefully I'll get my password right. Phew. Okay, so, on that screenshot we showed before, this is a replica. Again, like dashboards or these widgets we're going to work on today, where last time we had worked with a bulk uploader. Application processing is what we spent time on last time in Module 1, and utility and program management. I'll show you how to get to that payment approvals later. So today we're going to focus in this dashboard section. And one of the key setup items that you need to do, and your ears will help you through this, when you initially get in the system, it will look like this. You will have nothing here, and you'll be confused. What do I do here? You do need to manually add these dashboards through this Add Dashboard button. We will give you instructions, and we covered this last time. But just to give you a little preview what it looks like, as I mentioned, this budget and savings dashboard is called Power BI Report, so you have to select it from here. And the specific report is called BPA Dashboard. These are the two required fields. Everything else you can leave blank. That is how we made this visible. And the second one, I have this hidden here. That was one of the things we learned last time. To sort of add this invoice dashboard, we selected paginated report and BPA invoice dashboard. And again, these will be part of your setup instructions, so you don't need to worry about remembering these. We'll guide you through that. And I will just show the bulk uploader in a second, so I just want to make sure it's visible. So just to highlight a few things in the budget and savings dashboard, up top, this should be familiar with how you look at your EI budgets. This is EI budget and performance payment in aggregation up here. When you're going through the invoicing process, you're going to scroll down. And you need to make sure before you invoice that you check that you have enough budget. So the line item that you're looking in is this available budget. So you want to make sure before you invoice that this amount is enough to cover what you're invoicing. Now, these numbers are super skewed because we have all utilities selected. This is my permissions that I specifically have. When you come in here, you will only have utilities available that you have access to. So you will see one individual amount. Just a little bit about some other items like expended. Pretty small, but when you hover over here, you can see the amount. And then this means the budgets you have already invoiced for and payment has been made. Invoice pending, this is going to be a brief period of time from when you create the invoice to when that invoice is actually paid. So those are sort of your key budget ones you want to look at. Pipeline down here, this is everything you have in process. All of those applications that are being worked through the approval process. This amount in ready to invoice, these are going to be the applications that have been approved by BPA for payment, but you have not gone in to say, hey, I want to be paid for it. So these are just give you a little visibility of what's to come. But the key one you want to look at is make sure you have enough available budget here before invoicing. Performance payments we'll get into in a second when we focus in that area, but I want you to focus on EEI budget right now. Just scrolling down, this is just a similar view allowing you to see this in a tabular format, so it might be a little easier for you to read. Scroll down a little bit, you'll see we're in the budget tab. Right now, the savings tab is still under the works. We are finalizing this with our vendor. Want to acknowledge that this is coming and it's not yet useful to customers, but we will be sure to make an announcement once it's ready to go and provide you some reference materials. Last thing over here is other. Now, this is going to tell you the application count by status. Right now I have all utilities selected, so this is pretty overwhelming. But, when you are, let's just pick our good friends Tacoma, our focus group members. As you can see here, oh, did she approve some today? Let's see. Okay, I'm sorry, I had to scroll up. As you can see, these are all, she has 38 applications in process, and here are the different statuses that they're in. So this is just going to give you a visibility to what you have moving through BEETS. It also shows you, sort of where those measures are installed, just kind of a nice view. Okay, any questions about this budget dashboard? I think the one thing I did not mention here, when you get in here, it may look like this. And you can't really see anything, but if you hover over the corner, you do have the ability to sort of drag and drop and expand it to make it easier to see. Okay, so I think I have, yeah, Adam just mentioned the other will be relabeled to something more appropriate. All right, so Next, we are going to move into EEI payment approvals. So the section of the dashboard in the lower right-hand corner, focus on EEI payments specifically. And just to show you where we are in the process, and we'll do a quick refresher. This might be helpful for anyone who didn't attend Module 1. But as Adam mentioned, we went through the process. The customer submitted the application. BPA performed the validation check. BPA reviewed and approved the applications, and now we are ready to approve these payments for invoicing. So I'm going to just start with like that entry point, just a little refresher here. So I have this template. This is just something Melissa was using for testing, but because it's in the system, we will be able to sort of reference it, and you can see the entire process from beginning to end. So, you know, Melissa has 3 here. She has her measures. She's filled out her template. All her required fields are completed. She is ready to upload. So I'm going to help her out today. And we are going to go back to this bulk uploader that we added last time. I will select the utility. Expedition is our test utility. If you only have access to one utility, which you likely will, you will only see that in the drop-down. And then we're going to select the program. And a refresher here, this is also where you will upload your non-residential lighting calculators. So to select the file, you know, we can either drag and drop in here, or actually, I don't think I have this one. I don't have Melissa's in here, but we're going to pretend that I had Melissa saved on my computer. This is what we're uploading here. And then you click Upload File. And an important thing that we always want to make sure we're doing when we upload is you need to confirm you received this green confirmation screen. This is the only confirmation you're going to get before the data shows up in the system. So if you recall from Module 1, this is on sort of a batch load schedule. So during the day, it's about every 2 to 3 business hours. BEETS will take these uploads and pull that data into the system, into applications. So there is a period of time where you lose visibility to it, but if you get this green confirmation screen, you can be assured that it got into the system, or the system team will reach out if the upload failed. So you always want to pause and make sure that you got it, this green confirmation screen. So we're just going to pretend and fast forward a few hours. The upload has been pulled into the system. The applications are ready for their next step. So, you know, we're going to go to find these applications. You know, if you have any issues with them, you will be notified via email that you have a revisions required, which is that status where the utility needs to take action to move it forward. Otherwise, it will go right to the COTR for compliance review. So if you're just curious what happened with your upload, you know, you can go to application processing, and you built a filter previously with your utility and the program. I built one here. You can kind of see what this looks like. We went over this last time, but I selected Expedition, UES program, and I said I wanted to see everything in my statuses. So you do have the option to remove it, to remove statuses from the view, but I like seeing everything that came into the upload. So we're going to keep this as is. And I'm going to find my filter, and you will have your own in here. I have so many because I've done this demo way too many times, but you likely will just have a handful. And I'm going to click Show Results. And this is going to pull up all UES applications for the utility I selected based on the filter I defined. Now, this is a little slow because we have been testing like crazy in Expedition, so you're going to see quite a few applications show up. And you can tell if it's still syncing here. Okay, so this is kind of crazy. We have 1,000 here. Like I said, it's been very busy in Expedition. But I want to find that file that I uploaded, and how I can do that is using the search filter. So I'm going to go, hey, here is that unique identifier that I put in here. And because they're all the same, I'm just going to copy it into BEETS and filter down. So this is another opportunity to filter based on data. You can do it by project name, status, number, what date it was imported. From last time, we talked about how you can specifically configure the columns to show different data and move them around. This is a bit of a refresher. So in here, I'm going to do this project name because I want to find everything that was in that upload. Important reminder, these are exact field results. So if you want to do sort of a partial result, like suppose we just wanted to do MJP test, you have to use the asterisks. And we recommend doing it before or after. It's just sort of easier to make sure you get your result. So I'm pressing enter, and hey, look at this. The 3 that I uploaded are now in the system, and they are in compliance review, which is great. I did everything I needed to do. There were no required fields that were missing. I'm ready to move this forward. So if we take a look in here, as we covered last time, when you have this sort of blank screen, a little bit confusing because it says switch on task to see the list, you can assume this means that there are no tasks here for you to complete. It is now in compliance review with the COTR, and they have the baton for the next steps for this. If you do have tasks here, which we showed last time, that means you have actions to take, and it won't move forward until you complete them. So I have our Melissa waiting for your application, ready to approve it. She's playing the COTR role today. So we're going to just see what happens when Melissa approves this. And Melissa, you have this app number, right? Okay. Yep. And one thing I want to point out, when she's looking in the system, she sees the exact same data that you see here. She has access to everything that you do. She can see your funding determination. She is actually working on completing her responsible form here in compliance review. So you can see she started to fill this out. But another thing to note, in compliance review, when you go over to the payments, oh, did you just approve it, Melissa?
Sorry, I did.
No, that's okay. I didn't think it would update in real time. That's actually, I thought I would have to refresh. Okay, so while it was in compliance review, this was at 0, but Melissa just approved it, and we start seeing the payment information getting ready and being populated. So I am going to refresh this. It says it's in compliance review. She approved it. So now when I come back, it's moved to ready to invoice. And this is when it's back in your plate to do something. And ready to invoice means you are ready to approve payment and have the payment issued by BPA. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second. Does anybody have any questions on how we got to the ready to invoice status? This is most of what we spent last session doing. Okay, so let's take a look at what this looks like and what you need to do next. So we'll just note this sort of application number, 84754, MJP test capitals. Just note this in your head, and we'll see how this shows up in the payment approval screen. So, just navigating around, if you want to get back to that main dashboard page, just keep on clicking left, and then you will be able to access it. So if you recall, previously I've mentioned that utility and program management is where you perform your payment approvals. So we're going to click on this. And again, I have tons of utilities because I have access throughout the system right now. But when you go in here, you will only see your utility. You do need to select it. And then you're going to be taken to this screen. Let's see. Correct, Melissa. We don't want to use the back button. We want to use these breadcrumbs at the bottom to navigate around. So when you get to this page, you'll see like all the programs you work with. If you click on one of these, we'll just use UES because most people use it. Then you'll see all of the applications. So this is another way to sort of view what those filters showed you in the other screen. We're going to close this for now. What we need for this invoicing process is this payment approvals. Now, when you log in here, you may see some other widgets, and I'll just show these. What you see is sort of dependent on your permissions, but we were not able to fully remove some of these that are less helpful for BPA customers. So part of the setup process will be sort of hiding some of these so as not to distract. So, I'm just hiding snapshot config. It'll be sort of detailed out which ones are important for you. You want programs, payment approvals, and then we'll hide the financials because we can find that information elsewhere in an easier to view format. So we're going to go to this payment approvals. Blank screen, don't see anything. You need to sort of select from the drop-down which programs you want to see. So I just selected all. So I'm going to see across all programs, all applications I have that are in that ready to invoice status, so that ready for payment approval. So you can sort of hide this by going here. You can see individual application numbers. They're waiting to be approved. And how you approve them, you can either select all. Say, I want to approve everything in here. You'll see it's checked, and you'll get a total here. Or you can do them one by one and say, I only want a couple. I mean, that's a pretty big check. That's all I need this month. So you might just select that one. Now, another thing, before you approve your payments, let's just for today look at UES. So I'm going to unselect all and kind of start over. I just want to see UES. And then we can kind of see the one that we just approved with Melissa. So I have some other stuff in here, this application, and look here, this is the one that we had previously submitted through bulk upload. It had gone into compliance review and was approved. So this is the one we're going to focus on today. And I'm just going to flip back so you can kind of see how this payment progresses. Let's just go to that application, and on the payment screen, as you can see, the payment total, and we're in sort of that approved date of when the COTR approved it. Now I'm going to navigate back, and we're just going to approve this one. And so I'm going to click it and get my total. If there were more, we might want to sort of click additional ones. But before I click approve, we want to go back and just make sure we have enough EEI funds available to invoice for this. So I'm going to go back to my original screen. As I mentioned, keep on going left, and it will let you access the dashboard. And then I'm going to navigate to that budget and savings dashboard we just went through. And we're working in Expedition for today. So, like I said, you only see yours. And I'm going to go down to my available budget and make sure that I have enough money there. Hey, I have a ton, so there's no problems here. The $312,000, I'm only trying to approve, I think it was 90. So we're good to go. Now, if you do approve this and then it exceeds that EEI available budget, the application will be canceled and your payment approval will be returned to the screen for you to use at another time when you do have budget. But today we should have no problems. So I checked just this one for this example today, and I'm going to approve it. And this goes away. You no longer see it in here. However, if we return to that application, you're going to kind of see this moving through the system. And we now have this committed. So it's going to basically be sent up to BPA and that nightly batch that I was talking about, and they will create an invoice off of it. And then you will see as the payment progresses, this information is sort of filled out as it moves along the process. So any questions about that payment approval process, and then I will talk about what it looks like behind the scenes that's happening for that payment to be sent to you. Okay, so I'm just going to flip back to my slide because most of this will not be visible to you. Just to refresh, we were in that ready to invoice status. The app appeared in the payment approvals page. You approved it for payment, and then a budget check is performed behind the scenes nightly. So if you do not have EEI budget, like I said, the payment will be canceled and that application will return to that payment approvals page. If you do have enough budget, the financial systems will process and create an invoice. And this is an important thing to note, and hint may be in one of our knowledge check later. Once the invoice is created, this is when your earned performance payment is allocated. So this is when that bucket increases for the performance payment funds related to that EEI invoice. So this is an important point. This is when that should show up in your budget of earned performance payments. Similarly, once that invoice is created, it will kick off payment. So in net 10, BPA will issue payment or Treasury will issue payment, and then the application will move to the workflow status of application completed. So I will just show you an example of a fully paid application. So I just saved this one down as an example for today, so you don't need to worry about navigating here. I had just bookmarked it, which is a feature we saw last time. And this one up top, I'm just expanding so I can see the status is application completed. So we'll take a look at this one. And to find the payment information related to this measure that was submitted, you go to this Payments tab. And now you can kind of see we have the check information in here. So we have the check date, check number, invoice date, invoice number, so all that information is in here. This is also the point when that invoice is created that this invoice detail widget comes into play. So this was something we had added previously. So I go back to my dashboard and I'm going to go to this invoice dashboard widget. It can take a little bit to load. This is where I find the associated sort of list of all applications on an invoice and payment information. So we'll just select Bonneville Expedition for today. And let's just do all invoices from the beginning of October to yesterday. And I click View Report. So you can you could search by invoice number, you could search by range, whatever you want. And this is where you're going to find, once that invoice is created, it will appear here and where it is in the process. So, up here we have a payment in progress. So it's been approved. We're just waiting for that check. And once that check is paid, this date paid will populate. And if I click and expand these, you can start seeing the individual applications associated with it, as well as the savings and payment information at that level. So this is just where you would reference if you wanted to see what information is in that invoice. Now, we haven't gone through performance payments yet, but a thing to note, as Melissa mentioned, EEI and performance payment invoices are separate. So you can see which ones are associated by this little invoice ending of the invoice description. So this one is a performance payment, this is an EEI payment. They're handled independently and separately.
So Jen, there's a question from Dina, and I was going to note something here, but go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my question is, and I don't know why I didn't notice this before, where it says check, paid by check, but most of ours are paid by the Treasury. Can you explain if that's where the voucher number is going to reside?
Are you saying in this, in that screen showing like the payment information? Let me see.
Yeah, yeah.
The check amount? Yeah.
Yeah.
Adam, can you answer that? I think I know the answer.
The check number and the check date, check number, payment type, check payment. This is just a sample, right? Because most of them are going to be electronic with from the Treasury.
This isn't reflecting that Bonneville paid via check. It's just the functionality of the system.
Okay. So it's going to say this, and so I just need to let my customers know that it'll be electronic payment. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, and Dina's definitely, she's been in the system quite a bit and she knows this, but, this is an out-of-the-box system, and there are some things that we have had the flexibility to change from a Bonneville perspective that is that resonates with the customers, but some of this terminology may not 100% resonate, but we need to think about like the intent behind it. So we couldn't change that it says check here, but this is to sort of acknowledge when that payment was made and sort of like have some identifying information around it. So thanks for the question, Dina. Okay, I'm just realizing, poor Melissa, I skipped over your first knowledge check. So why don't we just take a pause and let's go into some questions.
Real quick though, Jen. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh, you want me to share?
I was going to just touch on the invoice. Could you go back to the invoice screen, the invoice dashboard? So I just wanted to note for the customers that with IS2, you would receive an email as your COTR approved your invoice package. Because you are doing the step of invoicing in whatever grouping you've created, this is where you'll see the similar information and be able to export it and have that kind of somewhat of a similar report. I just wanted to make sure it was clear that this isn't something the COTR would be sending upon completion, but we are looking at a way, it'll tell you when your invoice has gone through. Adam has noted for me yesterday that you would get an email saying your invoice had gone through, but you can come into here and then export this report to kind of go along with that email. Okay, thanks, Jen.
Yeah, and I don't think I mentioned there is the export capability up here, so you can have it in the system or not. To Melissa's point, like the benefit of this is going to be more on demand when you need it, sort of customer generated to have access to this information. Okay, so we're going to get into performance payments, which is a slightly different process for collecting those payments. So the process here, I sort of lined it up against how the EEI invoices are sort of collected or approved. In this situation, for performance payments, you actually complete an application, and then the BEETS performs some budget checks to make sure that you have enough funds in order to issue payments. So those steps of reviewing and improving, that doesn't happen. It's all automated, and there's no separate step needed for performance payments for the utility to go in and actually approve those. So, pre-invoicing, excuse me, I sort of alluded to it before. You're going to go onto your budget and savings dashboard, and you're going to look at these two buckets of funding. Do you have enough allocated performance payment, and do you have enough earned? So we talked about when that earned performance payment is increased, so that's at the point that invoice is created for that EEI payment. But the allocated, there will be a point in time when you get into BEETS that you will work with your EAR in the beginning to see how much of your EEI funding you want to allocate to performance payment funds up to your cap. So you can do this anytime during the year. You can contact your EAR to get it reallocated. But what's important is that you have enough in these two funding buckets before you claim the performance payments. So I will go into the system again. Dashboards. This is where I'm going to check the available and the earned. So it's in this bottom right-hand section. One thing to note, sometimes it's hard to see. If you use these little bars down here, you can make it bigger, and it just sort of lets you see it a little bit better and allows you to hover over it. So here's the available earned, and then down here you have your available budget. Up here you have your allocated. So those are the two key ones that you want to look at before you submit your performance payment application. So how you make that request for performance payment, you go up to application processing, and this is treated very similarly to that manual application process we looked at before, and you just create a new application. And you can do this at any time. So, you're only going to see your utility here, and you want to select performance payment. And similarly to the other manual applications we talked through, you always pick the start here. That'll make sure you go through the right workflow process. And it's pretty simple, just continue with creation. Now, on this form, there are some things that will be less relevant, and most of them you can ignore. Some of them you have to sort of complete because it's required. This is one of the less fun nuances about working with an out-of-the-box solution. So, we just recommend that people put their names in here. And but it's not important to this. Just search, and it says it doesn't exist. If you had entered one before, it will ask you to select your name, but otherwise we can move past. It's going to put my record in here for next time. You can skip contact information, and then we're just going to put in the request right here. So you can name it whatever you want, maybe performance payment request 11-9. And then here is where you request that amount. So as we mentioned previously, you can request as much as you have at any point. So you might want to check your budget one last time. I have tons of money in here, no problems. Using these breadcrumbs to navigate back and forth. And, just for today, I'm going to put in a small amount so we can keep some of that allocated later. Just do $10. You can skip the equipment, skip the files. This whole process, just, I know it's a little distracting, but we have detailed instructions on how to do this. And then click Create Application. It's going to take a minute, and then we always want to open up the application to see what's going on, make sure there's no other steps to complete. And at this point, it has moved to ready to invoice. You have enough allocated, you have enough earned, and it will proceed to payment. So very simple process. Now this ready to invoice will change once sort of that invoice is created, so we can kind of see this detailed out here. We just entered the application. We requested the performance payment. It goes into that nightly sort of load where it's allocated is checked, earned is checked. If you do not have enough funds, it will move into a budget hold, and you will get notified that you need to adjust the amount. So you'll get a task on that application in the workflow. But if there's enough, which is the case that we just had, it moves to ready to invoice, and then that night that invoice is created. And it will move to payment in process until the payment is issued, where it will move to app completed. So, as it moves along that payment cycle, even though you're not doing anything, you will be updated along the way. Okay, that's all I have for performance payments. It's a pretty straightforward process, doesn't require a lot of steps, even though it is a new sort of activity to perform in BEETS. Okay, if there are no questions about performance payments, I'm going to turn it over to Adam to talk about the BEETS reports portal.
Right. Okay. So now we're getting into a new feature. That's another something we haven't been able to provide our customers in the past. And so in this BEETS reports portal, it's built on a Microsoft reporting tool called SSRS. So you'll probably hear that kind of interchangeably used at times, SSRS. It's just a Microsoft product that allows you to build reports and distribute reports to users. So this is going to allow you to go in and run on demand a report of a portion of your data that's inside the BEETS system. We've built a couple reports thus far that we've made accessible to utilities when they get into the system, and we're going to show you those today. One's called the activity report, which was kind of born out of a report that is often typically requested from utilities that kind of come into their ear and say, hey, can you send me a report of all my activity for the past year? We have lots of those requests that come in, so we've taken that knowledge of what utilities were looking for, and we recreated this activity report, and it shows all of your activity in BEETS. It's broken down by program, and you'll see in the system you can filter by different things using SSRS, but you can also export it, so you can filter in Excel further down to if you're looking for something specific. But this is a comprehensive report that contains a lot of the very the high-level project information and measure information for every application that's inside the BEETS system. And then the second group of reports are called the grouper reports. And in case of most utilities, they will only find use out of one of these reports. But they were built for specifically the two programs that we use the bulk upload templates for. So you've imported a bunch of UES measures into BEETS. If our template has done a good job helping you make sure there's no errors in the template and you've completed it correctly, it's likely that those apps are going to go right to your COTR for review. The grouper report allows you to run the details of all those applications at once, so you can kind of import 100 apps and then you can go run a report and see those 100 apps and see all the calculated payments and savings that occurred with those apps. You don't have to look at them individually in the system. And then for our option 2 customers, they report their custom projects in bulk, so we built a very similar tool. We're going to hop into SSRS now. It can be used on different web browsers. We recommend Google Chrome because the login process it's cleaner on Google Chrome. Your username and password in BEETS and this reports portal are the same, and we'll have instructions on how to set it up to ensure that you are able to get access to both BEETS and the reports portal. But just note, same username, same password. That's the intention. So you go to another link, and the links to BEETS, the links to the reports portal, those are all on the bpa.gov BEETS page. So you'll have these links if you don't want to bookmark them, you can just have one portal that tells you, what are you doing today? I'm going to report applications, or I want to go do reports. So Jen's running Google Chrome to log in to the reports portal. If you use you can use other browsers. In our case, when we use Microsoft Edge, because Bonneville is a Microsoft heavy customer, the login procedure is a little bit convoluted for us, but you can still get in the same way, username and password. It just takes extra clicks. So here we are. Jen's got several folders because she's on the BPA side. You'll have a folder. You'll have probably two folders, one called utility reports and one called standard reports. We're focused on the utility reports. And the ones I just spoke about are here. So you click through the folders. Here's the reports you can run. You click the report you want to run, and then you'll see on the screen it's going to have at the top all the parameters that you can set to run the report. And again, you could set these as wide as you want or as focused as you want using these different filters, but you can export the data to Excel. So if you want to do it kind of a wide view of the world and then narrow it down once you get it out to Excel, you're welcome to do that if that's how you kind of like to work. So in this case, she's picked applications created in the month of October. You could set if they were actually paid, what was the invoice approved date. You could set that so you can only see your paid apps, or you could set you were looking for completion dates. Specifically, you can set those filters. The little null buttons mean I'm not going to set a parameter. I don't want to filter by that. The ones that don't have null checkboxes you have to set. So in this case, again, Jen's got all utilities, but you can narrow down to specific utility. In this case, we'll use our test utility, Expedition. You would likely just have your utility listed. And then general program, again, refers to that terminology we spoke about at the beginning of this training, and then the last training is what programs are you looking for the data in? You can select them all, or you could say, I'm just looking for UES measures today. The neat thing about this what she's doing as she's walking through each drop-down is it will self-filter. So as you make selections in the drop-downs, it'll change what's available in the next drop-down. So if you had picked one particular program, you'd have less statuses showing up to pick from. But you can select them all. You can see your applications that are in the pipeline or already approved and paid. You can get them all in the same report by filtering by status. And then lastly, if you're interested, you could also filter by sector. So if you're looking for just your agricultural projects, you can. The utility-specific program that Jen's pointing to, this is it's needed by the report to generate. It's just repetitive of what's in the general program. That's just a result of the fact that Bonneville has a lot of utility customers, so each program in each customer actually is a unique program. So the UES program for Benton PUD is a specific program different than the UES program for Cowlitz. So they're different programs. So that filter won't be, it's not really useful to those with single utilities. And so then you hit run the report, and what it's going to display is you'll have display. You could look through the report in here, but as mentioned, it does allow you to export it. It's going to show you the parameters that you set the report. In case you export it, you can save it and go, okay, what were my parameters? And then it's structured in two different portions. So on the left side, you see the document map. And this is, if you export it, it'll make a lot more sense. This is sort of like having different worksheets in Excel. So one worksheet has project level data, so it's summarized at the project level, and then one worksheet will have the measure data. So say you had a custom project with 3 different measures on it. At the project level, you'd have a summary of that custom project, added up, the savings and payments for all the measures. And then at the measure level, you would have the individual measures for that project. So you could drill into those 3 measures if you wanted to.
It's taking a minute to open. I think, or maybe I have to close my Excel. I'm giving all sorts of problems here. Hold on. Sorry about that. Okay, let's try that again. we're going to export it. It's easier to see. There we go.
And it's got a couple other formats, but I think Excel's obviously one that we're probably all familiar with, and lets you then save it locally and do what you like with it. And so you'll become familiar with it if you're interested in running the reports. It's got lots of different columns going that detail project information all the way out to payment and savings information. And again, we used kind of our knowledge of what was most often requested from our utility customers to build this. So you'll, in due time, if there's fields we find missing that we need to add, we can add those. So again, there's two worksheets here, project and measure, that export as separate worksheets. And they're one-to-one, so if you added up the measures for, say you had a custom project with 3 measures and you added up the payment on this, added up the 3 payments here, you would get the same number at the project level. So lots of data, lots of information that's been extracted from the BEETS system into this reporting module. The key thing about the reporting module that I can't believe I haven't said it already because I like to reiterate it is because it is a separate tool, it gets a replication, so a copy of the BEETS data overnight. So it does lag behind what's in BEETS by a day. So if all the applications that Jen showed you earlier that we worked on, the updates wouldn't be reflected in this report until tomorrow. So it is an after-the-fact reporting tool meant for you to kind of do analysis, not real-time. So that's how you use SSRS. It's pretty simple, we think, on the setting parameters and running the report and exporting it. And then the other reports work similarly. So we'll go to the UES utility grouper report, and this has less filters to use. And in this case, Jen could pull up what she might have loaded yesterday into the UES program, and this, because the UES program is, one measure is one application, if the project is the measure essentially in this, it just has one tab to the report. And we've set it to show you the statuses in which the application would be in after it initially is uploaded into the system. So it either everything was good with that application and went straight to the COTR into their compliance review, or maybe those applications went into revisions required. So revisions required, you'd get an email saying, hey, your application requires revisions, here's what we found wrong with it. This report's going to show you that same information. So say you had a big upload, you uploaded 50 things, and for whatever reason 10 of them had problems, you probably got 10 emails, and you said, I'm going to ignore those emails, but I'm going to run the report and get that all summarized for me. You can see it all together. So this shows everything that Jen had loaded on the 8th. And it shows some of the BEETS specific information, so the application number, which we're all going to be familiar with searching application numbers, the reference IDs, project names, statuses of the applications, and then again, system identified issues. This would be the same information that was emailed to you. So that fourth one down that says revisions required, funding source missing, you would have gotten an email saying this application is in revisions because the funding source is missing. This is the same information, just in a report format. And as she scrolls across, it starts pulling in some RefNo information, so it gives you a little more detail. If you submitted a RefNo using the reference number, it's going to give you the details out of the measure list. You can verify, yeah, that was my intended measure. Completion date that you submitted, then it's going to start showing you all the resulting calculations. So the system has taken what you imported, it's calculated reimbursements and savings, and then it's going to spit back out all the data that you also imported. So if it required an address, it's going to give you that information back. If you provided the manufacturer model, all the fields on your upload template, it's going to put them in the report too. So you have everything that went into the system from your template, along with what information the system did with those applications.
Okay. Thanks, Adam. And again, this is exportable. All of them are.
There was a question in the chat from Jennifer Cowlitz. Will IS2 historical data be migrated into BEETS? And if so, how far back will it go?
Yes, we are going to migrate the historical data into BEETS. We're hoping to have that done sometime early in the new year. It's going to go back all the way to the PTR days. So all IS-2O historical data and even beyond. Now, it's not going to be every bit of detail of everything about those invoices and records from those systems, but very relevant information will be there about them. So savings and payment details of all those records will be migrated in. So if it was a UES measure submitted in IS-2O, it's going to go into your UES program into BEETS, and then we'll also be adding a new program called historical data, which is where we're going to put all the PTR data, the really old system data dating back to the 80s. So we're planning to migrate it all.
Does that help, Jennifer? Great. Okay. Next week after go live, you can then request your username from your ear. If you haven't completed your user access form, please return it ASAP. There is a setup process, and we can't get you set up until we get that. So to avoid delays, get it in ASAP. Our drop-in office hours will kick off next Wednesday, except for a few holidays. We'll be running those through the end of January, so plenty of time to get support. We will be doing these sort of topically. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll focus on the bulk upload entry programs that are listed here, as well as invoicing and reporting, what we covered today. Thursday, Friday, we will have people on hand to talk through manual entry programs. Do want to note, while we have these focused topics, you are welcome to jump in at any time for any questions. We just want to make sure that we have like some walkthrough scheduled for people that need it for similar activities. And lastly, reach out to your ears. And then, we do have on the BEETS site a ton of resources for you all. And this is also where you're going to be getting the links to things. So like here's the link to Vision, here's the link to the reports portal. We can hold on this budget allocation until later, but these are two key links. All of the trainings are on here. I think you all found this. But most importantly from a training perspective, we have a ton of resources here. Training videos, navigation guides covered today, invoicing and performance payment guides. Everything we covered today is in there, as well as in the reports training guide. So the step-by-steps you need that we walked through today, here's where you're going to find it. Great. Well, thank you all. I apologize for running a minute or two over. Really appreciate your engagement, and we look forward to seeing you all in BEETS soon.
Thanks, everybody.